Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 153 of the Jiu-Jitsu Dummies podcast. We are brought to you by Black Belt Digital Marketing. Excuse me. Anything you need to build your business on or offline. It's website design, Google Ads, graphic design, any type of local marketing is where we specialize, but printing, we do it all. Check us out at Black Belt Digital Marketing on Instagram or our website, bbdigitalmarketing.com. You can request a free review of your online presence today. My name is Milton Campus. I'm a black belt training out of South Florida. We got Christian behind the camera. Now, Christian, be a little more excited today because you know the guest. So I'm going to do it again. We got Christian behind the camera.
What up?
There you go. Don't forget to like, comment, download, share. Click that subscribe button. We really appreciate the support. Joining us today is black belt, owner of Enclave Jiu-Jitsu out in Cleveland, Ohio. It is, right? And co-author of Worth Defending. We have Scott Burr that's going to join us in a couple of minutes. We're going to do a couple of quick shout-outs as always. We are also brought to you by Academy Safe. I got my Academy Safe, got my gear, Christian. I got my shirt, got a sticker, right? We're moving along. Academy Safe is a nonprofit whose mission is to help clean up the martial arts by advocating for background checks, U.S. Center for Safe Sport certifications, and concussion training for all coaches, staff members, basically anybody that works in the academy throughout the United States and Canada. I'm the founder and executive director. Rob Ingram, the founder of McDojo, is our executive VP. We've got a Secret Service agent on the board, right? I mean, we're kind of really cool and put together. We launched the website Monday. Today is November 8th. We launched this past Monday. There was a problem with NBC Universal Sports Engine. Yes, NBC Universal bought a background check company that provides this whole back-end service. There was a bug, and none of our subscriptions could get purchased. They're working on it. We're basically had to tear it down and then rebuild it. It's a quick process, but as of today, Friday, we can't take any new memberships. So hopefully by next week, we're going to be up and running again. So, with a nonprofit that got started in July, to be up this quickly was a feat. But we should have everything up next week, I'm hoping. So I'm communicating with them every day. But if you want to check it out, it's academysafe.org. You can donate there on the homepage. And hopefully by the time this comes out, you can click the little NBC Sports Engine button and go right to the site and log in, become a member of Academy Safe. And basically, we're asking you to do background checks, safe sport certification, concussion training. We want to make sure you have your CPR, first aid, defibrillator training. We'll help you get a defibrillator. You've got to pay or lease a defibrillator. We'll put you together with a company named Avive that we're working with. What else? Make sure you have your business insurance. A lot of people don't realize academies are notorious for letting their policies lapse. So we want to make sure that the academy is insured. We want to make sure that you have security cameras inside of your facility. So basic things that most academies should be doing. You don't have to do every one of these to be on the site or to be listed. The main things we want to make sure you got your background checks and your safe sport certification. That's the most important two things. We want to keep kids safe with all the sexual assault happening in martial arts. We want to make sure these kids and our families are safe. You've got to be over 18. So any of your employees, so your younger coaches don't have to do this, but 18 years and older, you can get a background check so you can be a member of the site. So I'm going to leave that there again, academysafe.org. Check it out. Give us your feedback. We'd love you guys to be members. Thank you to our friends over at Flow and Roll. Hands down the best custom gi and no gi gear in the business. You can visit them on Instagram at flow_n_roll. Check out their custom designs that they create for academies and competitors all across the country. They're actually on at all the IBJJF events, every weekend throughout the U.S. this year. They're actually going to be in Florida this weekend. This will come out after, but he's doing the ADCC events now as well. They have an incredible pre-order program. And if you need to stock up for your academy, he'll basically put your stuff for sale on his website so that you can get the money to get all your stuff. It's just a couple of $100 down, and then you're getting everything that you need. You use the money or the profits from what you sell online to stock up your gear in the academy. So it's great for a new owner or somebody who's just having trouble getting gear or having gear in stock in the academy. So Sean's great to work with. You can email him at flowandroll@gmail.com or just visit the website flowandroll.com, and you can fill out. There's a form that pops up as soon as you go to the site. You can fill it out and you can get more information. 20% off with code JJD on any of your just regular online orders. So you want to get a gi, you want to get a rash guard set, belts. He does embroidery on belts. You get 20% off your order. All right. He's awesome. Leo Optics. Always got to put the glasses on. I got the brown ones today. I should know the names, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Leo Optics. I don't know all the names of the glasses, but these are the brown ones. These are brown, like straight up bamboo. You can even it's wood. All right. We've got the let's go to the other side. Right. We got the little red stripe for black belts. You can request your belt rank at checkout. But shout out to Leo Optics, the go-to brand for sunglasses and apparel featuring their unique bamboo sunglasses. Born in Southern California, their products embody the BJJ lifestyle that we all know and love. Visit leooptics.com and use code JJD for 10% off your order. And, let me go back. You know what? One thing I didn't do was for Academy Safe, we set up a coupon code. So if you register on Academy Safe, you can use code JJD5, spell out 5, JJD5. The only reason I threw in the 5 because it's 5% off. But also the system won't let you do a 3-digit or a 3-letter code. So we do JJD for everything. This is JJD5. Just spell it out and you get 5% off your membership there as well. All right, let's do this. Let's bring in Scott. Hey, man.
What's up, man?
Thank you for being so patient, man. I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, man. Appreciate
it, man. So let's tell everybody, well, first of all, I've mentioned this on several podcasts. The first book that I've read cover to cover since high school, I don't even think I read any books cover to cover in high school. You go through, you skim it. I read this book every night before Richard came on the first podcast. I read this thing. I lay in bed, read for about a half hour, go to sleep a little bit every night. Got so into it, there'd be sometimes like I just couldn't put it down. I loved it. It was great. Congratulations on an awesome book. I know you got awesome feedback on Amazon, incredible reviews. And our in-house, I think he's a martial artist. I'm not really sure. I've only seen a picture. But Christian, he said, he's one of these, he says he trains, but you never see him train, Christian, our producer, actually met you, and he was the producer on the audiobook that you read, right?
Absolutely instrumental in helping us put out a decent audiobook. Yeah,
did he roll with you when he was out there? Because I don't know. He says he knows jiu-jitsu.
He kept threatening to.
Say it to me.
I did the same thing with him. I was like, dude, we should roll, and then we never did.
We're gonna come trade. Yeah, he's one of those guys. But he looks like he might be scary. He might be. I think he's got some hands. I don't know about jiu-jitsu yet.
No, I was like, oh, thank God he never showed up.
Yeah. Well, again, small freaking world. I was like, it's just kind of like, I don't know. It's just nice to, I feel like in jiu-jitsu, it's not 6 degrees of separation. It's like 3 degrees of separation. Like everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
Incredible book. Definitely suggest, everyone going out and getting it. I started to see you post about Richard Bresler. I understand he's very sick. We've talked about him on a couple of the last episodes. We put the GoFundMe in the description on both the podcast. If you're listening to just the sound, you can go into the description and find the GoFundMe, and then on YouTube as well, where we put out the full video and the audio now, because Apple or Google Podcast is now only on YouTube. So it's everywhere. If you're listening to us, just go to the description. But fill us in. Tell us as much as you can, as much as you guys are comfortable, talking about. How's Richard doing right now, and what's going on, and how can we help?
Well, right now Richard is he's very, very sick, and basically what happened was he ended up with a systemic infection. I don't know. I'm
not a doctor. Like, you got to say, hey, I'm not a doctor.
Right. I'm not a doctor. But he ended up in the ICU because he was very ill, and what they discovered is that he has stage 3 cirrhosis of the liver, which is the point at which your liver can no longer, your liver is an incredibly resilient organ and can heal. But once you reach this point, it can no longer recuperate. And at this point, the doctors still have no idea what caused this, because usually any of your listeners who know what cirrhosis of the liver is, often this is associated with lifestyle issues, either, poor diet, fatty liver disease, or alcohol abuse. And if you've read the book, you know that Richard is profoundly committed to his is incredibly clean. His lifestyle is incredibly clean and has been for 40. So this is not, and it's not related to any sort of other infection or illness that attacks the liver. The doctors literally can't figure out why this happened. But at this point, he's dealing with the situation, and it's the kind of situation where he's going to be needing a liver transplant. So he is. There was a period there where people were aware that Richard went into the hospital, and but he was still communicating with people on Facebook, and he was still responding to people with his phone. And when the GoFundMe got set up, the language around it was, "Oh, we're going to help Richard, live a healthy life," and all these things. And one of the reasons I wanted to come on your podcast was there's an urgency here and an extremity of the situation that I just want to make sure people understand. Richard is really very ill, and he's going to need some pretty profound medical intervention. And as we all know, in this country, that carries a very heavy financial burden. And Richard he's a working jiu-jitsu instructor like many of us. And so, in his present health condition, I mean, the book is doing well. The support for the book has been incredible. But in his current health condition, he can't teach, he can't work. And the treatments that are, originally there was a conversation about taking him to Houston to be treated by this specialist who had success treating stage 3 cirrhosis or cirrhosis. That at this point is kind of out of the question because of how sick Richard is right now. So he's being treated in LA, and he just really, really needs our support, and a lot of that can come down to financial support.
Yeah.
Okay. In this situation, so he's quite ill, and we need to have his back at this point, basically.
Yeah, man. So for those who don't know who Richard is, do you want to go into a little bit, just kind of give them the background of who he is, and maybe even talk about how you met and how you got involved with the book?
Absolutely. So Richard is, the short story is, Richard was Horian's first student in LA. He was his first regular student. And I think Horian had people come through who he had taught before he met Richard. He was already sort of teaching lessons out of his garage, but Richard was kind of the first guy who became a regular student and continued on to today, training and teaching jiu-jitsu. But basically, Richard met Horian in 1979, and very quickly thereafter, they became roommates. They both Richard needed to move out of the place he was in. Horian needed to move into a new place. And so they found a place together, and the place they rented in Hermosa Beach became the Gracie Garage, that first Gracie Garage that most people think of when they think of, the Gracie Garages. That was the real starting point. So that's where you see, if you've seen on YouTube, that video of Richard training with Rickson, and Elio is in the background, and they're in that garage space with the very grainy footage. That's where that took place. A lot of those images you see if you Google Gracie Garage, or that get shared when people write articles about the Gracie Garages, that's that house in Hermosa Beach. And actually, the last time I was out in LA, I was telling somebody who was out there with me, I was like, you got to go look at this house. You just got to go see it, and make a little pilgrimage out to that place. And they went, and it had been torn down. That house is now gone, because that whole area is being, people are buying these tiny places for a couple $1,000,000, tearing them down, and then building $7 million places in their place. So unfortunately, that first Gracie Garage is now gone. But the long and the short of it is that for basically the next almost 20 years, Richard was Horian's right-hand man. He was out, he was doing demonstrations with Horian. He was trying to set up classes. He was setting up challenge fights. He was basically telling any and everybody, like many of the early guys. He was an evangelical about jiu-jitsu. And when Horian decided that it was time needed to start the academy. They had been, the other Hoist was here, Rickson was here, Higan Machado was here. Guys were coming in and teaching more and more classes out of more and more garages, and it reached the point where they were going to start an academy. Horian couldn't get anybody to back him financially, and so he came to Richard, and Richard basically, the deal with the bank was that if they provided half of the money, then the bank would loan them the other half to start the academy. And so Richard himself, and then he got his parents to chip in the rest of the half that he didn't have, basically put that money in to start the academy. So Richard is literally the reason that the academy was able to open. And then he was an instructor at the academy. He was many people's first instructor at the original Gracie Academy. He was one of the first certified instructors. I mean, he was in that very early group of people. Basically and then he was, when Horian and Art Davey had this idea about starting the UFC, and they went to the Students for Investors, Richard was one of the first people to throw money in to invest in the UFC, help that get started. He was there at all the early UFCs that the Gracies were part of. He's just been there at every step of the way, and was this sort of in the background figure who was, the spotlight was always on Horian or Hoist or Rickson, but he was back there doing a lot of the groundwork stuff that was helping support all of these efforts. And so there's this way that the phrase I always use is that Richard really helped build the foundation of this house that we all now get to run around in and enjoy. So this world that we all live in, this jiu-jitsu world, it was built on this foundation that Richard was instrumental in building. And because he's such a humble guy, and because he's still so, he's so grateful to and still, reverent to Horian and Hoist and all these guys that we all look up to and admire. He's a guy who he's like, well, this story isn't really about me. And I go, man, you don't realize, like, this story, your story is so important, and people don't realize, like, he doesn't even sometimes seem to realize, like, what a big deal he is. Because he's just a very humble, he's not a self-aggrandizing guy in any way. And so if you ask about, like, the process of working on this book, one of the things about working on this book with him was sort of almost pulling these stories out of him and getting him to acknowledge the impact that he'd had. So
it feels like he wanted to be like the fly on the wall, but he was more than a fly on the wall. He was there. He was helping. He was loaning money. He was, like you said, it was very instrumental in all of this.
Absolutely.
But he's not looking. He was never looking for a lot of accolades. He wasn't.
No. Very incredibly down to earth, humble guy. Really special person.
Yeah, loved having him on, man. I hope to have him on again one day. If you're listening to this, Richard, we hope you get better soon, and hopefully we get to see you on this screen again one day.
Yeah.
So the book has had pretty good success. You've moved to you did the audiobook again with our producer Christian here. Right. What else have you written to talk about? Let's hear. I know that you have written other books. I mean, you are a writer, correct?
Yes.
Right. What else might we have seen from you, or what else have you put out there?
Well, so actually, in the midst of working on Richard's book, I was put in touch with Robert Drysdale. Okay. Who was at that time putting together the first draft of Opening Closed Guard. And so I ended up coming on and serving as the editor and the designer and sort of a collection of roles on that book, and helping him publish that. And then from there, it's been a series of collaborations with other people. It's done a similar process to Richard. I worked with a woman named Kip Bozzoni Doyle on a book about the patent system, which was fascinating and I knew nothing about. I worked with a guy named John Petrelli, who was a trainer out in Hollywood, kind of trainer to the stars, on his memoir about his sort of life's journey, and the lessons he's learned along the way. Really fascinating story. And then currently starting now, almost 2.5 years ago, I've been working with Chris Howder on a book about his life and it's similar to Richard's book in certain ways, but if you know Chris is a very unique mind, and so took a little bit of a different approach with that book to try to do something that's sort of reflective of his being, his character. But prior to that, I went to college for writing. I was a creative writing major, and I was trying to write fiction for a very long time. So from about 2000 and let's say 2001 till 2019, when I met Richard, I was very focused on writing, long form fiction. So wrote a number of novels that nobody really wanted to read, and then put out a few of them, or put out one of them, and put out some other writing about training and jiu-jitsu through, had a blog that I collected that was about training and mindset and stuff like that. So written a variety of sort of genres and subjects over the years, but the last few years have been a lot of collaborations, and a number of collaborations on jiu-jitsu and martial arts related. I'm also working on a book with a friend of mine named Benjamin Chen, who's a very successful tech entrepreneur, and we're working on a book about using martial arts principles in sort of business and in life. These ideas of being efficient and being effective and strategizing and being adaptive and being present and all these different things. So those, Howder's book and Ben's book are the two things I'm working on right now, mostly.
How far are we out from Chris Howder's book? That sounds, for me, that he's a great follow. He's a great follow on Instagram. He's fun,
So currently we are, I have a draft. So you've gone through several, the process is produce a first draft, kick it back and forth, sort of come to some sort of meeting of the minds on content and format and form and all those things. And so we're now at the point where we have a draft that I feel is pretty good. I'm going to give it one more pass and tinker with a few parts of it, but I feel like that draft is in pretty good shape. Chris is reading that right now, and he's supposed to get his comments and his kind of line edits back to me sometime in the next month or so. He's had it for a month, and it's a pretty long book, so it's going to take him a little bit of time to get through it. But I'm very hopeful that by spring of next year, it'll be out and available. I was very hopeful that it was going to be out by spring of this year as well. So,
you just heard me talk about Academy Save. It's never how you plan.
Right.
Hey, we're launching. We had a countdown and everything, and now it's just like, where's the website? The website's up. It doesn't work.
Oh no.
But I mean, I was doing it by kind of invites, at least initially. So I had a nice waiting list. So actually, one of our waiting list guys got on and was like, "I'm having a problem here," and he found a bug on one of but somehow the bug kind of infected everything else.
Oh no.
So yeah, listen, we were quick. We got everything up quick. It's not even the part that I can control. It's a whole. And
sure.
then it is literally NBC Universal bought up all these like little background check companies. So it's their platform. It's actually used for like little leagues around the country. So like you can have coaches come on, the refs, you go in, you do the Safe Sport certification, everybody gets a background check, you can record it all, right? So we're modifying it to what we need in martial arts, because it's all of martial arts, not just jiu-jitsu. And so I don't know, I guess whatever little modifications we tried to make kind of cause some other problems because the whole platform isn't down. Just we're down. So anyway, I get it. Like, time. Yeah, I own a marketing company. That's the day job. So we're always building website. I mean, most of the time for us, it's like the client screws up the timeline. They don't get us something. They're reviewing. They're doing something, but it's never the time. Like, I give them big timelines. I'm like 30 to 60 days as long as you get back to me in time. So the quicker you get back to me, the quicker it gets done. So I kind of know those, but there's always going to be a hiccup, and I don't even let that stuff get to me. After 18 years, I'm just like, go with the flow. I know it's going to happen. I've kind of factored it into my time frames with the client, but that's great, man. It's you kind of found from fiction writing to the jiu-jitsu side. I mean, maybe you found this little niche of, you continue to write with some of these people that you're talking about. We've had Robert Drysdale on. I didn't get to read the book before I interviewed him, so I said I'm more of like a podcast and an audiobook guy. So he was like, we're recording it. I'll get it to you. He did get me he sent me the Amazon link and I downloaded it. I haven't listened to it yet.
Okay.
But I have it. So I'm going to Costa Rica for a BJJ retreat this next week. I'm catching up on my reading and my podcast and that's probably going to be a good one to listen to while I'm traveling. So,
for sure. I mean, that was a fascinating project. Like that's a really cool book.
Yeah. I actually started reading it, and then it's just kind of one of those things where it's just like, really at the time running two different businesses, the podcast being one of them, the marketing company, gets very difficult to like sit down and like turn off the phone and do anything because everything's related to social media, online, So anyway, just excuses. I guess you can find time for things that you want to do. So hopefully on this, I'm having a couple of good travel days, so I'm hoping to sit around and listen to it while I'm traveling, and then maybe on the beach sipping some margaritas in Costa Rica after training, and I'll get to throw the earbuds in. So, but that's great, man. Congratulations on the success of these books, and I hopefully I'd love to listen. When you put out Chris's book, if you want to come back on, you're always welcome, and bring him on. Come on separately. We can do a little promoting, like we did with Richard.
He's got to fly down here, though.
Yeah. I thought he was going to say he's got to let me record the audiobook. He's got to let me produce the audiobook. But that's great. I mean, again, you wind up finding that, I don't know. I say this to clients, like sometimes the business steers, meaning like you don't know where it's going to go. And sometimes it just tells you where to go. So it kind of sounds like, you may not have thought you were going to be a jiu-jitsu writer. But sometimes the world just said, listen, there's something here for you. This is maybe what you're kind of meant to do. So tell me, like, so you were a creative writer. You went to college for writing. When did you find jiu-jitsu and along your path? How long have you been training?
So I found jiu-jitsu in 2006. I was in another martial art so I started in high school when I think I just turned 17. There was a school in town teaching a Korean style called Kuksul Do. That was sort of similar to Hapkido. It was like kicks and punches and forms and standing joint locks, that sort of thing. And so I was trained. I was really into that. I trained kind of constantly from the point that I started. And then I went away to school, and I would come back and train in the summers and stuff like that, and train at like the Taekwondo club when I was at school. And then when I graduated in 2005, I kind of spent the rest of that year. I stayed out. I was in Colorado for school, so I stayed out in Colorado that summer, and then kind of spent the next little bit bouncing around. And then when I got back home, I came back home in early 2006. All my training partners at the Kuksul Do Academy were getting super into The Ultimate Fighter because that had just come out, right? And they were all really interested in, learning jiu-jitsu and adding in Muay Thai and adding in these different things. And there was kind of a period of this idea that like we all still believed in Kuksul Do, but we wanted to add these things that we felt like were maybe Kuksul didn't have any grappling, and so we wanted to add that in and those sorts of things. And my buddy Jason Zakrajcek, the head instructor at that academy, was like, we got to find a jiu-jitsu instructor. And there was a purple belt in Cleveland at the time named Donald Park, who was a Hoyler affiliate. And so Jason started going and training with him and started bringing back what he was being taught and teaching us. And eventually, Donald moved to Chicago pretty soon after that. And one of his blue belts, a guy named Darren Branch, who's now also Hoyler black belt, took over that school. And so Jason started bringing Darren into our school to teach. I started going up to Darren's to train with them, and basically it got more and more in love with MMA, and then more and more in love with jiu-jitsu, and sort of less and less in love with Kuksul Do, and sort of there was a little handoff process. And so
happens to so many people, right?
Right. So whatever that was, 18 years ago, something like that.
Okay.
2006. What is it? It's almost 2025.
2020.
So
yeah.
18, 19.
Yeah. We got another month.
So that was kind of the beginning, and then Jason. There was a big idea that MMA was going to be there. There was that time period where it seemed like MMA was going to just take over, and all traditional martial arts were going to go by the wayside. And so Jason had this idea that he was going to open up an MMA gym as sort of like a parallel business to the Kuksul Do Academy. And so he sort of rented out the next door unit. We put in a cage, we put in heavy bags and all this stuff. And so Darren would come teach there one day a week. We had a kickboxing instructor coming in and teaching one day a week. And then I started teaching these sort of like general skill MMA classes and workouts. And then that evolved as, teaching MMA. MMA gyms are, we all know this, right? It's hard to kind of have a sustainable business teaching MMA fighters. Like, you need more accessible classes to more people. And
yeah.
So the business model sort of shifted, and I sort of, as I became more and more sort of enamored of jiu-jitsu and realizing the intelligence of this strategy of jiu-jitsu, I sort of got less and less interested in, not less and less. I love Muay Thai. I really enjoyed Muay Thai, but I started finding that I reached a point basically where I said, like, I can't really be a senior rank in jiu-jitsu who also is telling people that jiu-jitsu is insufficient. Mm-hmm. Like I know a lot of people do. I know a lot of people are like, well, you need everything. But I felt like I felt personally like it was disrespectful for me to teach this jiu-jitsu class and immediately teach implication that, like, you. So I started moving away from Muay Thai, and I started just teaching jiu-jitsu classes, and got deeper and deeper and more in love with jiu-jitsu basically as time went on.
So are you kind of saying?
Am I losing you?
No, we got you. You got a little.
Okay.
You got a little jumpy there for a little bit.
Okay.
Unlock the power of your online presence with Black Belt Digital Marketing. Their reputation management program ensures your Google business profile is seen by more potential customers. Black Belt Digital Marketing is your full-service digital marketing agency specializing in local SEO and reputation management. Boost your business today. Visit bbdigitalmarketing.com. Your success is their priority.
Special thank you to the crew over at Flow and Roll for all their support. Flow and Roll is renowned for their incredible no-gi rash guards, shorts, and leggings. Flow and Roll has quickly become the premier custom apparel provider for academies big and small throughout the United States. Reach out today to discuss your custom order and ask about their incredible pre-order program. You can send an email to flowandroll@gmail.com or visit their Instagram @flow_n_roll and shoot them a direct message. And yes, they can create an awesome custom gi for your academy as well. Visit flowandroll.com to check out their awesome designs, and remember, you'll get 20% off your purchase of t-shirts, rash guards, or gis with code JJD.
So, do you still feel that way? Do you still feel like, I guess what I'm taking away is, if we're teaching people jiu-jitsu, like this can work even against, a stronger opponent, maybe, I don't know what I want to say, a more skilled in another disciplined opponent, your jiu-jitsu should be able to stand up against that, right? So then if you're teaching MMA, you're saying like, don't just depend on jiu-jitsu, but I feel like we can just depend on the jiu-jitsu and I can fight somebody with hands. Like if I get my hands on Christian, I'm going to destroy him. Right? Right? I'm teasing. He's half my age. He probably kicked my ass. Right? That's what we're kind of saying. Like there's this, it's like, if I'm saying this, but I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth kind of if I'm doing both. I think there is a place for MMA. There's that argument for knowing a little bit of everything, but knowing a lot of jiu-jitsu and every aspect of jiu-jitsu, I think is just as powerful as knowing a little bit of everything. Am I agree, disagree?
No, I guess maybe let's talk through this. At the time, so I was like a purple belt and a brown belt in jiu-jitsu when we really made this shift where, I feel like I can't, I was honestly, I was less interested in Muay Thai. Mm-hmm. My interest was waning, but my interest in Muay Thai was waning at a time when my understanding of the reasoning behind the sort of fight strategy of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was increasing. So they were related trends. But the transition was really happening at a time where I said, if I'm going to become a black belt in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, then I should proceed with an absolute fervent belief that this is the best martial art. And because if I don't believe that, then why am I doing it? If I don't believe that, then why am I expecting to be ranked in it? Why am I expecting to receive a senior rank so that I can turn around and say, as a representative of this art, that this art isn't?
I gotcha.
I shouldn't expect that. That doesn't make any sense. So at that time, I was very passionate in that belief. So now we extend that out farther. Do I believe, meaning we extend it out in time, what do I think now, 10 years, 12 years, 14 years later? I think that the strategy, the logic of saying, I don't want to trade hands with people because in trading hands with people, I maintain a type of engagement and a distance that always puts me at some level of risk. And that level of risk can be mitigated by closing the distance, establishing a clinch, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
I certainly believe in the logic of that. So participating in a striking strategy or practice is sort of philosophically opposed to that understanding. So I probably am not going to do that. However, I would say that that only works if I train jiu-jitsu in a way that puts me at a very high level of familiarity with dealing with strikers, right? So I might put myself in an environment where I am constantly dealing with striking style engagement so that I develop a very high level of understanding of this type of situation. Another way to put it is like this. After I got my black belt in jiu-jitsu, I started training in judo. And I had sort of the same, I didn't have the concern where I was saying, jiu-jitsu isn't enough, I need to go train judo. But I saw how from the outside people would have the same understanding of my behavior. And so the way I would explain it to people is throwing people is a facet of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Being very effective in the clinch is a facet of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. But oftentimes in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, we don't have a practice where we truncate the parameters of our engagement to just that facet of it. You know, even if we're going to do takedowns, we do one takedown and then we grapple for the rest of the round oftentimes. Maybe there's two clinch and two throws, two clinch engagements and two throws in the course of a 5-minute or a 7-minute roll. Whereas in a judo class, I cut out all the grappling part of it and I can spend 5 minutes just in the clinch getting very familiar with that body of knowledge, just in the throws getting very familiar with that body of knowledge. So it was about putting myself in a venue where a facet of my jiu-jitsu was being hyper-focused on. Mm-hmm. And so even though I wouldn't say that I would necessarily go to a boxing gym to learn how to box, I could see saying, look, part of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is knowing how to deal with somebody who's coming at you with punches. It's dealing with somebody who's coming at you with kicks. And in order to have a very high level of application of that strategy, you need to be developing it so in a context where that skill set can really develop. So I would say training in these other martial arts, if you're using them as venues for exploring your jiu-jitsu skill set,
Gotcha.
that martial art as itself. However, there's a logic to saying you can't really understand the art until, like, for example, I can't really understand how to beat Muay Thai until I am good at Muay Thai. And I understand as an aggressor how I would be using these tools to beat somebody. Then as a defender, I can understand what he needs. And so I guess I'm much less dogmatic about it now as a student, because the idea is that I'm trying to gather as much information about human unarmed one-on-one conflict as possible. And each one of these things is going to show me something about that or help me develop a skill set around it. However, I do fundamentally go back to this idea that disengaged, sort of distance-based, striking-based arts carry an inherent risk that clinching can mitigate, which is sort of the foundation of all the grappling and the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu strategic philosophy. And so I do still believe that quite strongly. Different conversation than saying, I want to be a professional MMA fighter and I want to make sure I get a title shot as quickly as possible. That means being exciting. That means being this and that and having the big knockouts and having the skill set that really impresses people. And it's only a 5-minute round, so grappling strategy doesn't work as well. And the ref will stand us up, so it doesn't work as well. So the rule set favors the striker and not the grappler. And so there's different contexts in which using those tools makes more sense. So I think I'm a little bit more maybe open-minded in general around it than I was when I was a brown belt. But personally, for me, I think my approach remains the same.
Tell us a little bit about your school. Tell us a little bit about Enclave. I did see, I think on your Instagram, it does say judo and jiu-jitsu. Are you teaching both there?
Yeah. So when I designed that logo, I think I had kind of maybe just gotten no, that's not true. There was a point in time where I felt like I wanted to honor the connection to judo and to reclaim the connection to judo, meaning classic Kodokan judo is striking, throwing, and grappling. And I love that, right? I think that's the mixed martial arts, right? That's every context of engagement that two unarmed people end up in, and having the skills to succeed in a combat, in a confrontation, in each of those venues. So I was regrounding in what I felt like was the the thinking around the martial arts that was in judo and then that carried through sort of genetically through jiu-jitsu. And I think that was why I wanted to bring emphasis to those two things. But realistically, I mean, one of the things I often talk about with training with Rickson is that, like, in my experience, Rickson is one of the least precious about Gracie Jiu-Jitsu people I've ever trained with, right? So, meaning you meet many people who, you know, we do the technique like this because this is Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. This is what Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is. This move is Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. This self-defense is Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. And in my experience, Rickson is, so meaning that there's a context called Gracie Jiu-Jitsu that we're all trying to perform effectively. And the truth is, and the truth that I feel like Rickson is always grounded in is, there's a fight. There's two human beings who are unarmed who want to defeat each other. So whatever is effective and efficient in that context is the right answer. And Gracie Jiu-Jitsu should be a set of tools that help you succeed here. If it's not, and it starts becoming its own dogma, we're moving away from it being an effective martial art. And so my overall philosophy at Enclave Jiu-Jitsu is that the truth is in the fight. It's not necessarily in the art. The art should be showing us truth about the fight. But sometimes the art becomes the art. Sometimes we become so focused on doing the move or doing the script or doing what this guy said or that guy said that we lose the fact that we have a more direct relationship with truth sometimes by just saying, what's the fight? What's the context? You know, when I do that move, the guy can resist me. I feel like the guy can resist me. I feel like the guy can defend. Well, that's the truth. If you tell me like, well, no, it doesn't work. You should be able to be, well, yeah, but I can't. So how do I make a solution to the truth and not get lost in thinking about the art's answer necessarily? Even though I should always, I mean, ideally the art is a reliable and an intelligent system of solutions to problems. But we all know how sometimes it gets lost and confused and muddied and obscured and handed down in weird ways. And we get lost in thinking, well, this should work, or I was told this should work, or I was told this is the answer. And we get in a lot of confusion thinking I got to ask a teacher what the answer is, when maybe the answer is just say, okay, the guy's big, he's grabbing my head, it's very hard to deal with it. What is the thing that makes me feel more comfortable? What's the thing that makes me feel more stable? What's the thing that makes me feel these things? And by finding those things, we discover the truth that oftentimes is in the technique, but that if we just repeat the technique, we might never have found. So I guess in saying judo and jiu-jitsu, say, what do I teach? Well, I teach people how to deal with striking. I teach people how to deal with clinching. I teach people how to deal with grappling. And I teach them how to apply a grappling strategy in a fight confrontation. If we want to call that Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, if we want to call, I mean, my teachers are Rickson and Steve Maxwell, and Steve was Helson's first black belt. So it's Gracie strategy, it's Gracie technique, it's Gracie lineage. But it's in some ways more essential than saying I'm teaching Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. In the same way Jiu-Jitsu itself is talking about something more essential than Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, I'm okay. Understanding. I'm following you. When I'm hearing you say that, I'm kind of like what I said about the business steering before. It's sometimes the fight's going to steer you where it needs to go. If I'm standing there with like somebody I know is a wrestler, okay, we're going to be grappling. If I know the guy's like just a boxer and likes to stand on the feet, okay, I need to, grab him and take him down. I need my judo, right? Christian's pointing at me like he's going to be the boxer in our fight. But I mean, again, sometimes, I do think, you said something before, and I've kind of said this. You talked about the owner of the first academy that you went to, like realizing like there was this MMA component, and we've had this kind of discussion here quite a bit where we say like, is MMA the new art? Like, are those the gyms that are going to be the most successful? I used to say, yeah. And now I think differently, because I think that you eliminate the smaller kids, right? If you just had an MMA academy and you're telling everybody they have to throw hands and they have to kick and they're going to spar, you're going to turn off moms that want to have their kids in something like, again, more of the gentle art that is jiu-jitsu. And then you're going to turn off women, who maybe just want to learn a little self-defense. And again, maybe it's, more, I can see myself grappling, but I can't see myself getting hit in the face, so that you kind of eliminate that. And even my old school that I'm not at anymore, I'm at a new school locally in my town, but the previous school I used to say, I don't think that you could have long-term success unless you introduce some stand-up. And it's very much a like sport jiu-jitsu school. And he's had a lot of trouble keeping students for some other reasons, but it's so hyper-focused on sport jiu-jitsu, but there aren't enough people competing. Like, we're down here in South Florida, VRMA, right? Wagner is the school down here. You want to compete, whether you're a kid or an adult, forget about what you think about Wagner and all the bullshit that happened with fight sports. He's the place. Like, you want to make a name for yourself in sport jiu-jitsu. Even if you're training at your school, you go there. That's the place. It's just where all the kids, there's like Team Alpha Miami and a little further down south and things like that are big here now as well. But that's the school, and he just teaches sport jiu-jitsu. There is no, I don't believe there's any stand up at VRMA. It's just that. So like, yeah, you can go and you can learn that, and that could be the thing. And it's not necessarily self-defense. Like, people are going because they want to become great in sport jiu-jitsu. Right. But my old school, like, you're not big in sport jiu-jitsu, but you're only teaching sport jiu-jitsu. I think that you need to introduce some stand-up some traditional of like the Gracie elements of that stand-up and the stand-up defense. And that doesn't get taught. It's like, let's sit on our butts and let's start grappling, right? So there are schools out there like that. And I think again, unless you have a very, very strong, in the case of Wagner's, I mean, he's made a name for himself and then he made his school. If you don't have a name for yourself and you're trying to it's very difficult to just become this amazing coach without having done it yourself. There's a much longer line to toe. It's much more difficult to what do they say? Like, those who can't teach. Well, in jiu-jitsu, it's kind of hard to really build your brand if you can't point at the wall and say, those are my belts, those are my medals. This is the thing I do. So I'm not saying it's impossible. It becomes more difficult. So I think that's where, from a gym perspective, from a running an academy perspective, this is I've trained for 10 years. I'm like on the outside of owning an academy looking in. I feel like the academies down here in South Florida, at least, that do well and can hold more students are the ones that do mix it up a little bit, where there's a stand-up element, even if it's not full Muay Thai or full kickboxing classes, introducing that element into the ground game. My first school had, we called it MMA classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but it was essentially like, very light sparring and entries into, takedowns and less throws, but more into just takedowns. And then it was all about the grappling. Like you said, you're on, would you say like 2 throws or 2 grappling engagements, but, or not, what did you say? 2 throws and 2
like
clinching engagements, right?
Right.
Yeah. And then, it's 30 seconds on the feet, 5.5 minutes. We do 6-minute rounds at my place. So it's like, 5.5 minutes on the ground versus 30 seconds on your feet in those 2 throws and those grappling engagements or those clinching engagements. So there was a while there I was just like, you can't be successful unless you're running an MMA academy. But then I realized as I got a little bit older and just older in the sport, really more than anything, that there's a whole group of people that you'll turn off. But there, that's a product for one group. There's this other product. Say, if I ever opened a gym, I would focus on the jiu-jitsu. It's the thing that I love, and I think that comes across. It's the thing that I could coach the best. I've done a little stand-up, but that's not my thing. I do love coaching jiu-jitsu. And then, listen, these days, somebody asked this question. This might be a good time to ask it, but, being able to, the old school way of like, you come here like this, you have one master, you come to this school and that's it. You don't go anywhere else. And I mean, that's completely changed. Cross training is probably one of the best things you can do. Going to open mats, going to other gyms and getting other looks doesn't mean that you have to leave the gym that you love or what have you. But this question came from, I don't know if you know them, Bar Down BJJ on Instagram. It says, as the creator of Enclave Jiu-Jitsu, what advice would you give a student on navigating the coaching/mentor-student relationship outside of their local home gym where they may be a daily member? So like, again, we're talking about are you okay with your students training in other places, and how would you navigate that, or what advice would you give to somebody who's navigating that kind of unique relationship with a coach?
Yeah, so Enclave Jiu-Jitsu is a private facility. I mean, this space that I'm in here is a small space where I pretty much teach private lessons, and then I have a small group that I train with personally. And when I created this space, I created it with the idea that, I'd been an instructor for pretty much the entire time I was in jiu-jitsu, right? It was like, there were many times where I was like 3 months ahead of the students I was teaching. And I was always very open about this. I was like, if you have questions that I can answer, I'm going to give you an answer. If I can't answer you, I'm going to tell you that, but I'm going to go ask my teachers and I'm going to come back with an answer for you. So in the beginning, it was a little bit the blind leading the blind, but the point is that I never quite, and maybe this was just my sense of it, but I never quite had the space where I was only worried about my own development. I was only worried about like just being completely selfish about getting what I wanted to get out of the training. There was always an element of figuring out how I'm going to teach it, how I'm going to understand it so I can teach it to people. Like there was always a sense of the responsibility of my development was partially for me, but in being for me, it was for what I could give to my students. And eventually, I found that to be a very frustrating place for a few different reasons that we don't need to go into. But I wanted to create a space where I could just kind of be among a group of people who I would consider peers, even if I was technically ahead of them in rank, where it was more of like a collaborative space than it was a formal instructional space. So that's a long way of saying I don't quite have that issue here because this is a voluntary community, or it was very much intended to be a voluntary community, and people could add value to me by going off, training with other people, seeing different perspectives, and then bringing it into our next conversation. That was part of the idea, was to bring in the diversity of perspectives. So this space maybe embraced that and was allowed to embrace it more than a commercial gym or a traditional commercial gym. In the traditional commercial gym environment, there are ways in which I feel like jiu-jitsu it doesn't have a comfortable relationship with market capitalism, right? Because oftentimes we're creating family, we're creating community, we're creating loyalty, we're creating all these things, and there are just different motivators and incentive systems that don't always harmonize with each other. And so, for example, if I'm trying to develop a brand, right, because there's a limited market share, and my particular insights about jiu-jitsu and my particular perspective on jiu-jitsu are my value add, and I give those to my students, and my students go and they give them to other people, they've taken my value add and given it away, and now they've taken potential customers from me. Now, maybe they've attracted potential customers because those students who my students share with have seen, oh, there's a value at Scott's gym. I want to go train with Scott. Oh my God, this guy told me a thing Scott said and it was so great. I want to go see if Scott has anything else to say that's intelligent. But there is maybe a risk of it's kind of like in a little bit. Maybe it's like this idea of like a country without a border is not a country. It's like if I need to build this business, then I kind of need to keep stuff inside it. If it all goes out, then it's not a business anymore.
And it loses value?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Jiu-jitsu, like obviously this is part of the dynamic tension of this art that sort of, I don't think it's going anywhere, right? Because you see some people are like, no, absolutely, you can't train anywhere else. And then other people say, go train everywhere. And both of them have a lot to offer. And then both of them have a lot, have limitations, right? I mean, I try to be as open-minded about and curious and developing as possible, but I'm always going to be limited because of the way I think, because of the things I'm focused on, the things I'm interested in. My development is always going to be within one particular lane. And if you only ever train with me, even if what's in that lane is good, it's still just my lane. And so that's something that I have to acknowledge. On the flip side of it, I think a lot of people, a lot of students who feel like, oh, my coach doesn't want me to train anywhere else, and that's really controlling, and that's really like culty and all this stuff. They've never been in the position of being a coach and giving so much time and thought and energy and emotion into a student and saying like, man, it took me so many ass kickings and so much work to get this knowledge. I give you this knowledge that is like, literally, it's like the most precious thing I have. It was certainly the hardest to get. And I'm giving it to you. And then you take it away and you act like you don't owe me. Maybe owe is too strong a word, but you don't, or appreciation that would make me say, man, I would really feel like I was being unappreciative of Scott if I went and just trained somewhere else. Mm-hmm. If that doesn't click because you've never been in that position, I do understand instructors feeling taken for granted or betrayed, maybe too strong a word, but having a little bit of that feeling. So I don't know what the best answer. I mean, I think probably the ideal solution is to create an environment that is so fulfilling, or to attract the people who are fulfilled by your environment, that them wanting to train somewhere else is not really an issue. And that the people who want to train somewhere else, you say, well, great, then you should probably go train somewhere else. But the people who train here because they want to. I'm not telling anybody not to leave. Yeah. But they just want to keep showing up because they like it. They like the training. They like the teaching. I mean, that's the ideal situation. If I have to keep somebody here, I'm holding back something that isn't going away. Yeah. And is probably going to grow into a bigger issue. But this is, again, how the incentive system of market capitalism sort of skews the situation. Because in a perfect world, like I reached a point with the fight gym, the previous gym I was running, where I said, I'm not everybody's instructor. The way I communicate, the way I think about jiu-jitsu, it's not what everybody wants. It's not what everybody connects with. It's not how everybody learns. So if you don't connect with the way I teach and you don't learn, you should go find a teacher who teaches the way you learn. you are going to be happier. You're going to have better progress. You're going to have more fulfillment from your training. That teacher is going to have a better experience. But at the same time, if that teacher gets a student who really doesn't connect with them and might connect with me, they should say, oh, go train with Scott, right? And that's how it should work, because everybody should find their home, right? And it's not about the best place. It's about the best place for you.
Sure,
but because I got to pay the rent and because I got to keep the lights on and all those things, I want to keep all the students, whether they're like the right student for me or not.
You know,
so
go ahead, finish your thought.
No, that was the whole thought.
So one of the things that I love about the gym, I've moved gyms a few months ago. I'm at a place called Coral Springs BJJ, and there were 3 gyms that I was gonna check out when I left my school. One was American Top Team there was a new American Top Team in Coral Springs. There's a Silver Fox BJJ, and then Coral Springs BJJ. And I had a friend there. I said, let me go to Coral Springs BJJ first. I know somebody there. Let me go check him out. And I went there and immediately kind of like fell in love with the environment. I like a loosey-goosey, not super traditional environment. There was a certain level of respect that they've taught their students to have for the black belts. I'm a new black belt. It was just people coming up to you, shaking their hand, and nothing more than that. Nothing like putting anybody on a pedestal, but like somebody walks in the class, all the students they're told to go around and say hello and kind of bow into all of the black belts that are there. And there's usually sometimes like 5 to 10 black belts on the mat, which is great. And I went for the first week, and I went to an open mat. And what I discovered was that all the other gyms that I was going to go to come to this gym for their open mats. And I said, okay, this is interesting. And then I noticed that people were coming for the instruction as well. Like, I just they just would come for instruction during a regular weekday, non-open mat situation. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. What I found was that they were such a well-respected gym in the area that the other gyms that I wanted to get to come to this gym and mix up their training with this gym. So like, this is kind of the spot where I felt like people congregated a little bit. I was just like, oh, I'm going to get to train with those people, that coach from that gym, and I'm going to get to train with this guy from over here, and a whole bunch of other gyms that I didn't even know, and or that I wasn't going to go to. And I felt like I had a really, it was just a really fun environment. I was given the opportunity to show some moves and do a little coaching, which I love. I'm like a natural trainer, teacher. I do it with my, with my businesses. I'm the trainer. I love that. I love just imparting knowledge, and I don't know it all, but if I can help somebody, I love to help. And my point here was going to be, I almost feel like if you could be that gym that everybody wants to go to, you're not going to have a lot of people going out. Like, it's like I feel like the gym that I'm at now is so open to anybody coming there to train that we don't go out to those other places because they're all coming to us. So like, it's kind of that in the community, they're the school that's been there probably one of the longest. And so many people, just come to us. And those other schools are incredibly open to anybody. If you ever want to come, like, no mat fees, no, like, you've got to join, or you can only come once in a while, or it's only a free week. No, it's just like, we can go back and forth. And most people you're at your home gym, and then you might stray once in a while, a couple of times a month. I just feel like the gym, and I don't think it was necessarily by design, it just happened. Again, the business steered it into this place where it's become the gym in the community, where most other gyms, if they want to go to an open mat or get a different look at something, they come here. So it's been I feel like the choice that I made is incredible. My old gym, I couldn't figure why people didn't stay. I was there for 8 years. Of my 10 years training, I was there for 8 years, and I couldn't figure out, why do all the black belts get promoted and leave? Why is it so many white belts? Where are all the color belts? Like, why did that girl leave? Why did this girl? And again, I found out, one of the reasons I started Academy Safe, started to find out what was really going on, and I decided I can't be at a place like this, and I left. But I couldn't figure that out, why, you kind of don't know what you don't know. I didn't know that the other gyms were like that. My first gym closed after 2 years. I was a blue belt. I was training, I was coaching at white belt, so I didn't see the environment. So my first school closes, so I didn't get, the only look I got was at this gym that I was at 8 years. So you're thinking that this is the way it is everywhere. Then I start to do the podcast, and I start to hear different opinions and views, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's not like this everywhere. And I couldn't go train anywhere else because the coach would get annoyed, or he didn't like somebody at another gym. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, it's not them, it's you. And it took unfortunately, it took 8 years to really, really, truly realize that. But now I'm in a place where it's just like, oh, this is the way that it's supposed to be. You know, you're supposed to be sharing that. When you've got 5, 10 black belts on the mat and there's no ego. And like the other day, I showed my coach a variation of something he was showing the class. I was like, you know, like if you put your leg here, look how much quicker it is. Like if you shoot your leg through, and it was like an X guard, and I'm not an X guard guy, but I'm like, look, if you shoot your leg, it's kind of quicker if you do it this way. And he was like, took me off to the side. He's like, show me. And I'm showing this guy that's got a couple of stripes on his belt, something that I just do because I learned someplace else. And I told there's 2 owners. I told the other owner, I whispered to him, I'm like, hey, you know, if you do it this way, I go, but you know, he was like, go show it. And I go, I don't want to show it. It's disrespectful to my coach. You're still my coach. So that's disrespect. He's like, no, not here. Not here. Go. He's like, hey guys, Milton wants to show you something. And I got everybody rounded up, and it was like no big deal. And I'm like, this is not what I'm used to. Sharing knowledge, a new black belt sharing knowledge with black belts of higher rank. And some of them knew the move and they knew, but I was able to share some. I just haven't been part of that environment before. Other than at my first gym where I'm like literally coaching the kids class at white belt. But I just hadn't been part of that, and that's what I'm a part of. So again, you know, going back to what I said initially was like being that place. I'm at a gym where they are that place in the community that people want to come train to. Nobody's stealing students; they still go back to their home gyms, but it's so open and it's so inviting that anybody can come. And again, they're like, "Come on through. The doors are open." So they've become that place, and you know, I'm sad that I hadn't moved sooner and been a part of it for longer, but I'm there now. And it's a really nice environment, which I like. I thrive in that environment of being able to. I talk for a living. I'm a salesperson. I run a podcast. So to put me in a room with people and I'm not allowed to share what I know or what I'm thinking is difficult for my personality. It just is. So when somebody says like, "Hey, come on in," show me, hey, you know, and that's not just me. It's anybody. Hey, show that move. Let's understand that. Another look at this. It's just it's. In the world of jiu-jitsu, I had not experienced that till just this last year, which is just really great. So
it's a fascinating, like this thing that we do where we either open up or we close down, right? It's kind of in everything, and it's so
as humans or as jiu-jitsu practitioners,
as humans,
yeah.
Right? As cultures, as communities, it's you when you. I think I don't use this language a lot, but like this idea of the scarcity mindset and how the scarcity mindset makes me start to try to draw a wall around my stuff because I'm worried I'm going to lose it and then not have enough. But when I feel like I have enough, or I trust that I'll always have enough, I'm very open and generous. And the irony is that when I'm open and generous, it usually attracts more. And it's so funny, like I've often sort of, because in whatever it is, 18, 19 years, whatever I've been in jiu-jitsu, and then kind of just other communities and stuff, friend groups and groups in college and different stuff. It's interesting the way groups organically congeal, they come together, and then they work and they're firing, and there's this synergy, and then something shifts and it sort of falls apart, but then another group forms and another thing happens, and you sort of have these moments, and then the moments are over. And when the moments start to end is oftentimes when people start to get very rigid around them. They start to make rules around how we're going to keep this going. And when you start to make the rules around it, it's just kind of makes it something else. You didn't save the thing you thought you were saving. You made it something else. And so it's like it's almost like you have to choose in that moment of feeling the threat. You have to choose to trust that something else is going to come, and there are always going to be more people, or anything that's leaving is actually making space for the next better thing. But it's so interesting how that little, like, is like that drop of food coloring in the water, where like that little drop of fear in the community will start to make people pull back from each other and not want to share and not want to let you go somewhere else, or not like it when you go somewhere else. And why'd you show that guy that move? I showed you that. And like, it's interesting because on the one hand, it seems like a very fragile thing, right? But the reality is that it's an incredibly resilient thing. But the resilience only happens when things fall apart, right? So yes, it's fragile, but it always comes back again. So like its fragility is tempered by its resilience. It's kind of
what you said there initially about like giving, like being open and giving. In the business world, I belong to a business referral organization, and we call it Giver's Gain. So we're a bunch of business owners. Each industry is represented by one person. I do the digital marketing. And it's like I might give a bunch of referrals to the real estate lady. The real estate lady gives a whole bunch of referrals to the insurance guy or to the mortgage guy, right? She never gives me one referral. I give her tons. She never gives me anything, but she gives to the mortgage guy, and the mortgage guy gives me a ton. Like we're sharing the information. And for me, like it's taught me to, like, I give of myself, of my company. Like I try to feel like if I have a dime, you have a nickel. If you're my friend or you need it, if I have a dime, you're going to have a nickel. You know, I aspire to be the guy that I want to give you the shirt off my back. And not always that there's in the personal life, sometimes when you do that, you can't do it when there's something in it for you. But in business, I do it to help people. And I want them to tell that guy helped me. Oh, that guy? You know, I need a website too. I should go to him, right? In business, I want that, right? So I give. I'll do free stuff for people. I've done PowerPoints for speakers, nothing back. I shouldn't say that, nothing back. Like I did it. Hey, I'm going to do you the, and like, if you ever need anything, just let me know. If you know anybody that needs anything, like now that's something for them to be like, yeah, this guy did this for me. Oh, who did that? Oh, really? Maybe he could do that for me. Right? And then I get a paid client. So like Giver's Gain is like, just give. And it's going to come around because you're giving into this group that are like-minded. Like I'm going to make sure that if I hear somebody saying they're selling their house and I'm going to get the real estate agent involved. Or if there's somebody that says, you know, I haven't been able to get I'm having a problem with the bank and my mortgage. I got a guy. Right? Let me introduce you, right? So then I'm always thinking about these people. I'm giving. And hopefully they're going to do the same, whether it's their client, a family member, or they need something, right? So I give to I've tried to carry that over into my personal life, and I do believe it works because it's two things that happen. You kind of said this before, like you give information and then somebody takes it and then they go give it to somebody else. In some cases, almost like it's their own. But then you kind of peel the layer back on that person, right? And been like, okay, now I understand who you are. Versus like I teach you something and then you go, hey, I know a guy that needs to know this as well. Like, let me bring him in here to this group, bring him in, right? I think, you know, if you're teaching people and then they go and teach it as if it's their own and they're a blue belt. It's like it's like, really, buddy? You know, come on. You know, but bring that person in. Like if you know somebody that needs that help, hey, bring them into the fold versus like, you know, representing it's your own. Or if you take it further, it's just like, you know, I forget about politics for a second, but I believe it was like Michelle Obama that said, like, Michelle or Barack Obama said, believe people when they tell you who they are, right? Believe people when they tell you who you are. And I kind of like added that to the mix as well. If I'm doing for you, whether it's business or personal, and you just take, even when you don't need it, but you're like, oh, he gives, so let me take, then you've revealed yourself to me. But if you're somebody that says, hey, I'm going to pay, you did this for me and I'm going to pay it forward, that's a plus. I'm happy about that. Or, hey, you did this thing for me. If you ever need anything, let me know. Or I can do that. I can help you with this, right? It's like the buddy that can help you move. Like you help him move. And then when you've got to move, he's just like, I'm busy. Right. Right? Like, but so like, you know, people reveal themselves. And I'm not saying you have to get rid of those people, but you kind of do. You reveal yourself in those moments especially when somebody's doing for you, doing for the community. And you're not giving back. I mean, doesn't that bring us full circle? Like Richard has done so much for this community.
100%.
He's been around. I mean, like, you know, want to say this. Maybe it's a little bit more, but I said, like, I want to die on the mat. Like, I want to be training as long as I can. I literally had 2 heart attacks after training. Just like, I've had a heart attack, and I had 2 heart attacks. I wasn't falling on the floor. It's like chest pains. Like, what's this? Oh, am I gassy? What is it? Wound up being a heart attack 8 years ago. Like, but I've said, like, I legitimately, like, if I died on the mat in my 80s, I would think I would have died a happy person. You know, I want my family to be around. I want all those things, but meaning that I love jiu-jitsu so much that if I can do this for the rest of my life, where I am able to be mobile and or at least teach, I feel like, aside from my family, I've done something. We know how it is. When you give that knowledge in jiu-jitsu, it is extremely fulfilling. You know, when you teach somebody and then you see them do it and then they take it and they're like, wow, it's such an incredible feeling. So if I could be on the mats for the rest of my life, that would be wonderful. And obviously nobody wants to be in the position that Richard's in, but I know that he's lived that life. He's done jiu-jitsu since, I don't remember the exact age, but from the book, right? He was working in his parents' burger shop, and he wound up doing jiu-jitsu, and he's been doing it since then. I don't think, right? It's been nonstop in this world. Yeah. He's not been like taking breaks or you correct me if I'm wrong, but it's never a time that he's taken years off.
No, he's been teaching the whole time.
He's in his 70s, mid-70s?
Yeah, mid-70s.
Mid-70s? I mean, he's lived that life as it relates to jiu-jitsu. And again, we said it earlier, like, you know, he's probably taken way less than he's given to the world of jiu-jitsu, you know, in the form of accolades, money, you know, you know, the glory, but he supported a lot of people who did. And I think it's, you know, again, I think I would feel like Richard would probably say he's lived that giver's gain lifestyle. I've given. And, you know, I've gotten back. And now that this is a point where, like, even if he's not asking for it himself, like, we can give. Let's do something. Let's give. Let's put some shine on this. Let's help him. Let's donate. Chance, So it's our chance to give back to somebody who's given a ton to this world. So Scott, I'm gonna.
Very well said.
Yeah, thank you, man. So we do this little thing at the end of each episode called the drill down.
Sure.
These are the most common questions. I think I mentioned to you earlier. These are like the most common questions that we get. So I'm going to run through this. I like to get these from everybody because there's some good stuff in here so that people can kind of understand your thoughts around jiu-jitsu. So we'll run through these real quick. You can feel free to elaborate as much as you want on any of these. So let me do the official sound effects because our sound effects guy is in here. So it's time for
the drill down.
We normally have a guy that does that. He's actually does the drill down. So, so the first question is gi or no gi? What's your preference?
Oh, man. I like them both. Probably gi, though.
Yeah. So, like, I usually say it like this. Like, if you're going on a trip and you know there's gi and no gi, you can go to a no gi school or a gi school. Which one are you packing your gi?
Well, thank you for that wonderful segue because actually, a couple of years ago, my friends, my training partners, and I started a company that makes travel gis.
Oh yeah,
called Black Market Kimonos.
Hey, that's the hat.
I am always bringing my Black Market kimono. They're made of 10-ounce ripstop cotton, so they pack down very small.
Okay.
So you can bring them to on any trip you go on, even if you're only bringing a personal item on the plane. So I am always packing a gi.
So that was in no way a setup. I saw the hat. I had no clue that's what that was, to be honest with you. It sounded like we just set that up, didn't it?
It did. It was great. We're going to cut this part out so it just sounds like a flood, right?
So, takedown or pull guard?
Takedown.
All right. Music during rolling, yes or no?
Yes.
What's your go-to? What's your preference?
Lately, it's been like, let's see. Lately, it's been Childish Gambino radio or 90s alt rock radio.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like Childish Gambino.
Yeah.
Is he coming out with like one final album? I think he's doing something.
I think it's out.
Is it out?
But then he canceled his tour. Like he's got some health issues going on. Or something.
I've a fan, and then like you know, like his singing voice is like he can just like sing a cappella.
Yeah.
I've seen him on some videos and like he's done some like radio shows and things like that. It's an amazing voice. I mean, talk about like triple threat, quadruple threat, comedian,
Seriously.
actor, singer, rapper. I mean, it's pretty amazing. I'm a fan.
Yeah, writer, director, incredibly talented.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Most, what do we, so I adjusted this for the last podcast, but most annoying things that students do. Yeah, I always like to tell you mine. I'm that guy that's like, when the coach is like, I can't do that move. I'm too old. I can't do that move. My back. And the coach is like, just do the freaking move. Watch. I'm going to show you. And then like, they'll help me like, look, because of your body or your back, do it like, and then I do it. And I'm like, fuck. Like, but I'm that guy that's like, yeah, I can't. I'm not going to berimbolo. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to invert. Like, I'm that guy that like says no to my coach. And then he's like, just do it. And then I do it. This is in the past. And then I'll be like, oh shit, I can actually do that move.
I think probably, and this is probably true of jiu-jitsu and in general, people who ask questions that aren't questions, that they're just a disguised way of telling you how much they know.
I might be that guy too. I might be that guy. As you know, starting jiu-jitsu older, like I wasn't a kid, like I had an opinion and I was such a huge UFC fan and I wrestled a little in junior high and I've been like hitting the bag like from forever in my house and like studying YouTube videos. So like I thought my coach asked me, he's like, what do you know about jiu-jitsu? I stepped on the mat, he goes, what do you know about jiu-jitsu? And I'm like, oh, huge UFC fan. So I kind of got some of the basic, like he laughed. He laughed. He's like, come here. And he put me in his clothes guard and proceeded to beat the shit out of me, you know, and like, I beat the shit out of me, like throw me around like I was nothing. And we're like this, like we're both like, I think he was 260. I was like 230 at the time. So it's like, yeah, I guess I know nothing, you know. I'm probably that guy though too. What would you be doing if you hadn't have found martial arts? I'm guessing maybe writing more, but what would you be doing if you hadn't found martial arts?
Yeah, I think I'd be writing.
Yeah.
I'd probably be rock climbing a lot more than I do now.
Is that a hobby that you pursue when you have time now?
Yeah, I was really into rock climbing in college. It's like part of the reason I went out west for school. So I think that would probably be my main physical outlet if I wasn't doing jiu-jitsu.
Career though, feel like you'd be writing more?
I'd be writing, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, you know, writing's a tough gig. I didn't make any money at it for a long time.
Yeah.
So, ideally, yeah. I think, yeah, that's a whole other conversation. But
we'll save that for the next
probably
episode.
Writing. Yeah.
Are you somebody that watches a lot of like stuff online, instructionals? Are you somebody that learns? And like I do like the 1 minute clips where I'm seeing a move that I might know and then just see somebody do it differently. Like, oh, okay, I like those different takes on it. I'm not somebody who's going to watch a multi-hour instructional. Are you somebody that watches stuff online or consumes jiu-jitsu in that way?
No, I'm not. But I watch a lot of fights, and I feel like I watch them very much, yeah, as we all do, looking for the little gold nuggets in there. Oh my God, I didn't know you could. Oh, look, that combination, that approach, that strategy. That's probably my main like supplemental material that I consume. I mean, I do watch like, Rickson's Academy, his online instructional materials. I watch that religiously because it's Rickson and because I'm in some of it. So I gotta make sure I don't look like
I gotta see it, make sure my hair look good.
Right, exactly. But outside of that, no, I don't. I don't watch a lot of it.
Okay. Are you? How about you? Like we talked about MMA before. Are you a UFC fan? Do you watch any of that kind of stuff? Do you watch competitions like CJI and ADCC? Are you into any of that?
I watched the CJI. I never watched a lot of jiu-jitsu competition. I was really up on the UFC for a long time. I don't keep that current with it. I mean, I'll watch the Stipe fight coming up because he's local boy done good.
Cleveland, right? Yeah.
But like I loved watching Pride. I was like, that was how I got through COVID, was I just watched all of Pride over again.
Yeah.
And so,
All of it?
like pretty much all of it. But then what I started doing is I have an Aerodyne over here, and I would like get on it, and do like an hour on the Aerodyne and just watch. Like I went on Facebook Marketplace and would find these lots of people getting rid of like UFC and Pride DVDs, and I would just buy them for like $45 and you'd get 70 fights.
Really? Oh, wow.
I'm just working my way through them slowly.
Wow.
But yeah.
What did you think CJI versus ADCC? Did you have a preference as to the final product, let's call it?
I mean, I have never watched an entire ADCC event. I loved the CJI. I thought it was super entertaining, and I loved the what did they call it?
The alley?
The alley, yeah. I thought that was really neat.
I think that's a game changer. I think that might be a game changer for those type of competitions. I mean, obviously, I don't know what's going on with Mo and ADCC, but there's something that I feel is probably going to change. I mean, he even mentioned it, I think, before he announced that he was no longer going to be with the organization, but he might be in the background still. Mm-hmm. I think there's something there. I think that there's really something. The two things that I took away, the alley, and then just the one match. That it's a tournament, basically. ADCC is that tournament. So, CJI is not the same kind of tournament. It's very, a smaller tournament, brackets. Mm-hmm. I just feel like that alley, no stop to the action, and then just being able to focus on a fight. Unless even if you're there and you're trying to watch 3 fights, you don't get to take it all in. But there's so many competitors, so you have to do it that way. Or do you? Could there be 3 alleys? Could there be multiple, so many questions that I have. I'm so curious what happens in the next couple of years. But I definitely I watched CJI all the way through. And like you said, I've never watched a full ADC every match event. You just can't. But I definitely was more entertained, and I love him or hate him. Craig Jones has done something that I don't think anybody thought he was going to be able to accomplish. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just, I like that little shake up every once in a while. I think it's nice to take a little box and shake it up and then see what happens. And sometimes what comes out the other side is beautiful. I think it was a great event.
Well, I loved, I got super into Metamoris when they were doing those. And I was really, I know other people have done other events that are kind of similar since then. And that format's kind of taken off. And I haven't kept up with those. But I love that kind of that's what CJI felt like to me. Yeah. A little bit.
How about PGF? Have you looked at PGF at all?
No.
Brendan McCatherine, 10th Planet guy. No,
I haven't. No.
It's kind of like basically. I mean, they I guess initially the first year he kind of basically recorded an entire season in a week and then just put it out. So matches in a tournament system. So it's a little. It's not something that I really laser focus in and watch. We had him on the show once. We talked about it when he was first getting it off the ground. But that's something that's taken off. So they did a season. I think they're doing a season right now. But it's now I think they're kind of doing it more live. The last one they did was literally live, or at least the week before they had a few matches and then they did this live final event. So interesting, different takes, kind of like leagues, kind of. Points, and if you get a submission, you get this many points towards your total versus if you got, if you just got a decision, you made this, you get this many points. So it's not just I win, I beat everybody. It's kind of a point system as well. So kind of interesting take, but it's totally different than just the traditional tournament. Ultimate goal in jiu-jitsu. What would you like to say? What would you want your legacy to be?
My legacy.
This is usually the thinker. If you're legacy, this is called Jiu-Jitsu Dummies, right? Legacy.
I think somebody asked me something kind of related to that question at one point, and I think what I said was, I think they asked it about in general, what do you want? What do you want to accomplish in your life? And what I said then, and I think what I still feel probably more so even than when I said it, was that when I was young, I was very concerned about accomplishing something and sort of making something of my life. And that I felt like I had to maybe hit these goals and hit these markers and hit these create these products, get this belt and write this book and get this level of, get an agent, get a publisher, get a this, get a that. And that if I did those things, that my life would have been validated by some sort of external governing body that gave me its stamp of approval, which I think is often younger people feel that way. And I think I said at the time, and I've definitely said to people since, that one of the gifts of getting older has been getting to let go of that to some extent and realizing that it's far more important to me now to be interested and energized by what I'm doing than to worry about what it's coming to. Mm-hmm. And so even though in the last 5 years I've done things that are the most significant in terms of more people are aware of them and more people have engaged with them. I don't want to say that that's less important to me, but it's sort of been in a similar way to maybe saying when we start letting go is when we start getting more. Because I stopped worrying so much about hitting these markers and I started just letting, as you said, letting the business steer, letting the energy of the situation pull me forward rather than trying to push towards some objective. Things have started to happen more and more, and it's become more and more clear to me that the quality of the time is the highest quality of the time would be in spending it, being energized, being inspired, being excited to get out of bed, being pulled by my interest in whatever I'm doing, is much more important to me than what anything I'm doing accomplishes. Maybe in the faith and in the belief and in the trust that in doing that, these things will get accomplished that do have an impact and have a reach. Legacy is something I think about less and less, honestly. I mean, I want to keep writing, I want to keep doing jiu-jitsu, I want to keep working on interesting projects, I want to keep learning from people who are giving me the kind of insight and the kind of, the further into the rabbit holes that I want to go down. I want to keep doing those things up until the point that those activities stop doing that for me. And at that point, I want to have I would say, maybe courage to let go of those things and find the things that actually pull me. So I don't know. Maybe that's not a great way to answer that question, but that's kind of when people talk about like legacy or what are you trying to accomplish. I mean that's really all I can say now, I guess.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. That's an answer.
Okay.
All right. Last question.
Okay.
And I see those belts hanging over your shoulder back there.
Oh yeah.
We always ask this one. This is we've had. I used to do this podcast with like 4 other people. We used to do roundtables pre-COVID, and then COVID kind of changed our model, and then we stuck with usually the one-on-ones, or we do still have people come in and we do roundtables, and sometimes I have a co-host. But we always had this internal argument about, do you or are you supposed to? Do you or do you not wash your jiu-jitsu belt?
Oh no.
Oh no, you don't like the question, or oh no, you don't do that.
Yeah, oh no, I don't know about the questions because then people, no, I've never washed a jiu-jitsu belt in my life.
You've never?
No.
Wow, that's a long time.
It's icky. It might be icky.
Yeah.
I remember watching, and probably you have seen it or some of your listeners have seen it, that video that came out in whatever it was, 2015, I want to say, where Howder goes like, I want there to be a molecule of sweat from everybody I've rolled with in my belt. And I'd never thought about it like that, but that kind of resonated with me when he said it. I mean, it wasn't like I stopped washing my belt at that point. I hadn't been washing it all along. But I don't, like, maybe here's how I feel about it. I want the wear and tear on my belt to be genuine. And I feel like washing it kind of accelerates that.
That has been the only answer that I've gotten from people that resonated with me. Mm-hmm. The mojo and the blood of my, the fallen warriors. And that can't. But I was a belt washer. I other than white belt, I had from blue to brown. I always had 2 belts. Mm-hmm. Had them in my bag, wore one, throw it in with my gi at night, wash my gi every night, throw the belt in. I never thought about it. And I mentioned Wagner before. I interviewed Wagner and his wife, and Wagner, he was sitting right next to me in our old studio, and I never got a look of like, I never had anybody look at me like, are you fucking kidding me? You wash your belt. Like, the way that he looked at me was just like, what are you, a fucking idiot? Of course you don't wash your belt. Like, his thing was that people who wash their belt are trying to make it look like they train more. So the wear and tear is not from the training. And I said, you know what? I've always had 2 belts, never considered it. My schools were relatively small. My coach knows how much I train. It's not like I could get lost in some shuffle of hundreds of students. So like for me, I got the reason. He didn't say the mojo and like, the blood, and it was just like you're trying to make it look like to the outside world that you're training more than you. I was like, okay, I could live with that. I can't live with the like, no, samurai, whatever. I don't know, all the different bullshit that people try to pull out. The mojo, and I've got a piece of your blood on my belt, and it makes my jiu-jitsu better. Or if I do love the comedy around like somebody. There's a guy that did it. He put his black belt in the wash. He's like, yeah, I wash my black belt all the time. When he takes it out, it's a brown belt. Yeah, I get that, and it's funny and it's fun. But again, we've had a lot of fun with that. We usually throw something on. You might see on the screen if you watch the whole video back. It's going to say hashtag powers in the belt. So it's usually it's belt washers or it's powers in the belt. So you got the powers in the belt since you don't wash. Right. But Scott, listen, thank you so much for doing this. Let me give you a minute if you want to shout out your brand, give them the Instagram, anybody you want to say hello to, or, mention the book again. This is your time.
All right. Thank you. So people can follow me on social media, Facebook and Instagram at Enclave Jiu-Jitsu, ENCLAVE Jiu-Jitsu. I'm also at www.enclavejujitsu.com. You can keep up with my writing stuff at scottburrauthor.com or on Facebook at scottburrauthor. The gi company I mentioned is blackmarketkimonos.com. 10% through the end of the year, 10% of all sales are going to be getting donated to Richard's GoFundMe as well. So if people do go there and they check it out and they like something, know that 10% of that sale is going to go to Richard's GoFundMe. And then, of course, Richard's book is worthdefendingbook.com or on social media at worthdefendingbook if people don't know about that book. It's print, ebook, and audiobook, and there are links in the bios on that social media and on that website. If you go to worthdefendingbook.com, the first thing you're going to see is a little blurb about Richard's health situation and a link to the GoFundMe. That GoFundMe link is in the bios of the social media. So Richard really needs our support right now, and he really appreciates the support that he's gotten. I should also mention, I emailed a bunch of schools across the country. One of the ways, if people are looking for a way to do something for Richard beyond just donating to that GoFundMe, one of the suggestions I put out was if you want to host an open mat where the entrance fee or the mat fee for that open mat is a donation to Richard's GoFundMe. I made up a graphic, and it's on the social media, or you can email me through any of those links, and I can send you this graphic. But it's talking about Richard and the situation, and then it's got a QR code that, if you print that out, you have that under your open mat. People walk in the door, they scan the QR code, they make a donation, and that's their entry fee. And people have been hosting those. It's brought in it brought in some funds, and that is so much appreciated. But if anybody's interested in hosting one of those, it's an easy way to have a little bit more impact for Richard and that GoFundMe. So right now, that's our focus, is trying to bring awareness and bring some.
And for the listeners, we'll keep on putting the GoFundMe link in our descriptions and on Jiu-Jitsu Dummies. It is, if you click on our bio, you'll see, like, they show you one link, but if you click on that, it opens up a window that shows you like our other links, and Richard Bresler's GoFundMe is right in there as well. So if you click on the link in our bio, it will come up before it takes you to anything else. Scott, stick around 1 second because we're going to take a couple of pictures with you on the screen here for promo and for the launch, okay? I'm just going to shout out a couple of, this is like going to take less than a minute.
Unlock the power of your online presence with Black Belt Digital Marketing. Their reputation management program ensures your Google business profile is seen by more potential customers. Black Belt Digital Marketing is your full-service digital marketing agency specializing in local SEO and reputation management. Boost your business today. Visit bbdigitalmarketing.com. Your success is their priority.
Special thank you to the crew over at Flow and Roll for all their support. Flow and Roll is renowned for their incredible no-gi rash guards, shorts, and leggings. Flow and Roll has quickly become the premier custom apparel provider for academies big and small throughout the United States. Reach out today to discuss your custom order and ask about their incredible pre-order program. You can send an email to flowandroll@gmail.com or visit their Instagram at flow_n_roll and shoot them a direct message. And yes, they can create an awesome custom gi for your academy as well. Visit flowandroll.com to check out their awesome designs, and remember, you'll get 20% off your purchase of t-shirts, rash guards, or gis with code JJD.
Shout out to BioPro, bioproteintech.com. Get $30 off with code JJD on their regularly priced kits. I take this stuff. I take the day and night programs. You take a little vial, put it under your tongue. It's like an alternative to HGH. The BJJ box, they've been with us again for a little bit, for a couple months now. Check them out at thebjjbox.com. They went to quarterly boxes, right? You get a nice box with a nice, you get a T-shirt, you get some like different products. You might get some protein bars and some different things. It's like a little box of goodies, something new every month. That's thebjjbox.com. And again, it's 20% off your first box with code JJD20. You can check us out at Jiu-Jitsu Dummies on Instagram. On YouTube, it's Jiu-Jitsu Dummies Podcast. Obviously, if you're listening to the podcast sound, you could jump over and watch the full video. My personal IG is Uncle Milty BJJ. And that's it. Thank you for watching and listening, everybody. Peace, love, Jiu-Jitsu. Oos.
Thank you, guys.